The roots of global hostility toward Islam, between economic interests and political domination. Dear esteemed audience, a question is often raised. Why does this continuous and escalating hostility toward Islam exist? Is it because of the Islamic creed itself? Is it because of what is called Islamic terrorism, as promoted by Western media? Or are there deeper reasons more closely connected to the structure of the global system and the interests of the ruling class? Islam and its principles in confrontation with the interests of the ruling class. Islam forbids usury, while the global financial system is built on exploiting people through debts and interest, which generate billions for banks and major corporations. Islam forbids alcohol, while the alcohol trade is one of the largest sources of profit and tax revenue for governments. Islam forbids theft and the exploitation of peoples, while many governments build their wealth on plundering natural resources and cheap labor. Islam forbids bribery, while bribery is a primary tool for controlling people and nations through networks of influence and corruption. Islam forbids prostitution, while it is a profitable trade used for political and economic control and influence. Islam forbids drugs, which form a black market that generates enormous profits and is used as a means to weaken peoples. Islam forbids fraud in transactions, while fraud is the foundation of many forms of speculation and artificial markets that enrich the dominant class. Therefore, the hostility is not so much doctrinal as it is a conflict of interests, because Islam directly threatens the sources of profit of the ruling class. Media misinformation directed at the Western citizen. The misled Western citizen believes that this hostility is a defense of Christianity or Judaism, or that it is a doctrinal conflict. Strangely, most of those who promote hostility toward Islam are not religious in the first place, neither Christian nor Jewish, but merely use empty slogans. Even what is called the far right has no real connection to religious conservatism. Rather, it is merely a political and economic tool. The real goal is to frighten people away from the teachings of Islam, so they do not discover that Islam forbids the illegitimate sources of their profits. Islam as a direct threat to their interests. When artists, immoral figures, or people of influence enter Islam, they deprive these criminals of a continuous source of revenue. Islam cuts off the streams of immorality and corruption that form the root of their wealth. Therefore, hostility toward Islam is deeply rooted and fundamental, because Islam represents a threat to economic and political interests, not because it is terrorism as they claim. Thus, global hostility toward Islam is not because Islam is true or false, nor because it is terrorism as alleged, but because it is a project of liberation for peoples that threatens the interests of the ruling class, whose profits are built on usury, alcohol, prostitution, drugs, bribery, and corruption. The struggle is not between religions, but between the values of justice and freedom carried by Islam, and the interests of a global class that does not want to lose the illegitimate sources of its wealth.